good, fam? Jesus. UFC 299 was, oh my god. As far as cards go, that's about as good as you could get. Stacked start to finish, and then every single fight was entertaining. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know where to start. Let's start with Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Oh my god. That guy doesn't have a stomach. He's just got, there's a little staffy sitting in that guy's belly. That guy's got a dog inside of him. Let's go, DP. That was sick. Like, obviously the co-main event, but he fully stole the show with that performance. Saint Denis, everybody was, I think in my lead up I was kind of touting Saint Denis as, oh, he's that upcoming guy, undefeated. I think possibly he might have lost, but on a win, yeah, lost his debut at a different weight class. But on a tear of just finishing people left, right and centre, TKOs, and then DP walks in with his bollocks and a wheelbarrow, just like, what's up? And, Saint Denis come out like everyone expected, like a bat out of hell. And, I don't think he dropped him, but he got him against the cage and then took him down a couple times and got to his back and threatened the RNC a few times. And Dustin just kept getting up. And at the end of the second, it was like, I don't know how much more Dustin can take. But then as the second started, you could see Saint Denis kind of, there is talk that he was on. He had a few different, he was on antibiotics because he had staphylococcal infections, which is like skin infections, which it's bad if it can get bad and get in your bloodstream, it'll kill you. But obviously being on antibiotics drains your body at the same time as well. So, there is that to take into consideration. But he had plenty of power and plenty of gusto in the first round. And, he just come out in the second, tried to continue where he'd left off in the first, but he couldn't keep that pace. And it was early in the second round when he managed to kind of bum rush him and push him to the cage with flurries. DP, hit him with an uppercut which dropped him to his knees, or at least made him kind of shoot a takedown, and that was the beginning of the end for Saint Denis. And then there was just a few more exchanges. That is there's nothing better in combat sports than seeing Dustin Poirier and those heavy exchanges when they've got to the brink of they're getting somewhat tired. The gas tank's starting to come into play, and they're still exchanging. And you see Dustin, that he's in his element, man. He the hike of the pants, and then he's just those hooking shots that Poirier throws are they're so entertaining. He finished Alvarez, Gaethje, obviously not in their last fight, but in their first fight, and then Conor as well. You see him in those exchanges, and he'll dig those body shots, and then he'll come back upstairs, and it's so good to watch, man. Dustin Poirier, shout out, the motherfucker can still dance. Let's go, Dustin Poirier. But that stole the show for sure. So that's the highlight of the card for me, 100%. Dustin Poirier, 35 years old, proven that he's still got it, and he's not going anywhere. That division, lightweight, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Max Holloway and Gaethje BMF, and then what happens with the lightweight belts and all of that carry on. That sucks. But shout outs Dustin Poirier, man. Pays the cost to be the boss. That's got, and the walkout, the whole Dustin Poirier experience is fucking well worth tuning in for. And then in the main event, a masterclass by Sean O'Malley against Cheeto Vera. Jesus, every step of the way, O'Malley is. You can't really down him now. Like I said in the build up, I think. There was still a chance that he'd only been lucky and got his puncher's chance against Aljo. and that if the fight had continued, Aljo might have managed to wrap him up, put him down, and do Aljo things to him. But after this performance against Cheeto, he hasn't got many more bloody questions to answer, old O'Malley. He's killing it. That was an amazing performance. About as damaged, 100% as damaged as we've ever seen Cheeto. Cheeto historically go through a 5-round fight and be unscathed, come out and look like he hasn't even fought. Not in this one. That knee that O'Malley landed, like everybody's been saying, would put most people, regardless of weight class, to sleep. And he was obviously rocked by it, but he gritted it through, and he survived, because Cheeto's he's a dog, just like Dustin Poirier. You're gonna have to put him out to put him out, and if that knee's not gonna put you away, I don't know what else is. There was a few other shots like, O'Malley can hit hard, man. Those guys with those long levers, man. You see, it's not the swole, bulked up dudes that hit hard. It's the guys with the long arms that have got that leverage, and when they land, you could see that it was hurting Cheeto. Regardless of how tough he is, O'Malley was hurting him. And by the time it got to the third round, I think a lot of people thought that that's probably when Cheeto would start, coming to his own, and his durability and cardio would really start to show. And if he was going to have a chance, that's when he'll be able to start turning it up and might be able to put it on Sean a bit, if he hadn't managed to hurt his legs early, which, that perennial nerve, it's crazy when guys get hit there. It's a game changer. If you get them in the right spot on that perennial nerve, regardless of skill level, you can probably slow them down and beat them, which is what Cheeto did in the first one. And unfortunately, he couldn't do it again. He couldn't. The whole debate on how or whether or not O'Malley's kind of a bit fragile, that's going out the window quite quickly now, especially after this performance. Like I say, there's not many holes to be picked in O'Malley's game now. The guy's been just showing and proving it every step of the way. So shout outs to Sean O'Malley for just an amazing performance. It was a good fight. It was actually, I can't imagine. And shouts to Sean for even engaging in these type of kind of exchanges towards the end of a fight where he's just wiped the floor of someone. But right at the end of the 5th round, they did the old Max Holloway thing, like, let's throw down and then center the octagon to finish it. And in that exchange, Cheeto, that was the best shot of the fight. He got him. He got him a good shot in the fucking breadbasket. And you could see Sean take a breath, and then boom, that was the buzzer, end of the fight. And Sean kind of went and he took a seat after that against the cage and kind of regathered himself, because that one had obviously got him. But almost the only reason that Cheeto managed to get him is because O'Malley said, hey, let's throw down. I can't see him getting caught in those situations other than at the end of a round where he's kind of wants to let his nuts hang a little bit. So that, if Cheeto would kind of bit down and kind of made it a bit more of a dogfight and made it messy and kind of tied him up a bit more and threw shots in there and made it like played it a bit dirtier, he might have had a bit more luck, but he just couldn't get it going. He just couldn't get it going. O'Malley's too sharp and too accurate, too long. Pause. Just what a performance. Shout out Sean O'Malley. Cheeto Vera's still the man. I can imagine we'll still see him around the top of that division, but I think, he's lost to Sandhagen, and it'd be good to see him back in a title shot, but I can't imagine that's going to happen anytime soon. But what a fight. Co-main and main event, great fights. Dustin Poirier. Shout out Dustin the Diamond Poirier, man. That shit was... When he hit him with that hook that finished it before he hit him with one more ground and pound, it's like Hollywood stuff. You see him just fucking fold his head around and at the same time just blood spraying out his nose and his mouth. It's a brutal sport, but it's beautiful at the same time. And then MVP versus Kevin Holland. The first half was a really entertaining fight, First 2 rounds probably. I think it went one either way, debatably. But then as time went on, MVP, what does he call it, the 630 style, because his hands are down by his waist and he's bouncing around like this. Shout out KSI. But yeah, he's down there playing at range, just jumping in and out, and he was just getting the better of Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, after a round and a half or so, just didn't know what to do and was just getting frustrated. He's so rangy and he can move in and out like at the drop of a hat. And there was this, what he like jump in, throw the overhand, land the overhand, step through, and then sweep Kevin Holland over his legs. He did it once cleanly, and he might have done it a couple of times, but he's just. And then he just seemed to be able to get his underhooks and get to a body lock like reasonably easily. I know that Kevin Holland's, he's a grappler. He's got a BJJ black belt, but he's not, his wrestling game's probably, like they were stating, like Kevin Holland's probably been working on his defensive grappling more than his offensive grappling. And he needed a bit of offensive grappling in this situation to get to get MVP to the ground. Because, MVP, even when they're in those clinch situations, seemed to be able to dig his underhooks and get a body lock and then turn Kevin Holland and disengage like reasonably easily, like almost whenever he wanted to. There was one point in I think it was the second round, where Kevin Holland actually did manage to take him down and they had him against the fence and he almost managed to sneak around and take his back and choke him out. He had his hand around his neck and MVP managed to just get his back to the ground, and at that point he was getting elbowed, and that was about the most danger he was in. And I think the round ended, or he managed to get up and then the round ended, but that was about the most danger he was in for the whole fight. And then after that, Kevin Holland just lost interest, and he wasn't having a bar of it. He wasn't having any fun. He kind of got out-egoed, out-big-mouthed by old MVP, which I think is what we'll expect MVP to do going forward in the UFC, is that he's just going to be in there. It's super entertaining. He was landing spinning back elbows. He landed some really heavy shots on Kevin as well, and Kevin Holland was just not having a bar of it towards the end. He didn't want to be in there. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see MVP going forward on how they match him, and because if he does match up with a wrestler who can put him down, he's going to be in for a long night, I think. But his kind of anti-grappling, similar to the Adesanyas and some of these other top-level strikers, does seem to be on point against a reasonably seasoned grappler in Kevin Holland. Maybe lacking a bit of offensive wrestling game, but yeah. Be interesting to see going forward what they do with MVP. Could be a lot of fun, or there could be some snoozes and quite frustrating fights along the way, but it'll be interesting to see. Then the whole card, every fight was good, man. Moving down from there, Gilbert Burns versus JDM, Jack Della Maddalena out of Aussie. Shout out. This is the next kind of Australasian guy, I think, that we're going to see at the top of weight classes, because he looked really good in this. Gilbert Burns did as well. Gilbert Burns was probably on his way to winning on the judges' scorecards. He would just, although Jack would land the longer, kind of cleaner exchanges on the feet, Gilbert was managing to land really heavy shots and then work his grappling in, take Jack down, as well as land heavy shots, push him to the cage, and kind of somewhat impose his game. In amongst that, Jack Della Maddalena, he'll come up with like body head, like boxing exchanges, and it's so crisp. It's fucking good to watch. It's really good to watch. But I think, although it was close, I think Gilbert Burns was on his way to a victory. But then late in the third round, grappling exchange, it was looking really bad for JDM, and then they were up against the cage, and then he manages to do this like almost like breakdancing, like head spin thing to kind of disengage from Gilbert Burns and then back up. Gilbert gets up from the cage, and this was like perfect, just JDM knowing that Gilbert was going to look to shoot and look to engage in grappling again, and then as soon as Gilbert gets up, he's like getting up off the ground and shooting all in one type of movement, Jack Della Maddalena manages to throw the perfect knee that just collects him as he's shooting in, and Gilbert continues with the shot, and then I think he get underhooks or like picks him up and then hits him again and he falls down. But either way, the knee's what did the damage. And Gilbert falls back down and gets TKO'd by, I think he just kind of hit him a couple more. Oh no, he did. He kind of re-guarded, like got his half guard back, or like that's what I assume the ref was thinking he was trying to do. But it looked like he was done at that point. The ref gave him a moment, and then he kind of got his guard back, but then JDM just managed to pass again and land some more ground and pound, and the ref called it, which was a fair enough call. I think he maybe a little bit late. Old Gilbert looked like he'd kind of rolled over it and given up after that knee almost, but bloody good fight. Shout out JDM, pulling it out of the fire. And, who's he called? He called out Shavkat Rakhmonov after that, which ain't nobody calling out Shavkat. So shout outs to JDM. There was some serious balls and wheelbarrows throughout this whole card. So if they met, I can't imagine why they wouldn't do that, because it's really hard to get matchups for Shavkat at the moment. I guess it's like either the champ, title match for Shavkat. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him JDM though, because that's an entertaining fight. And if someone's calling for Shavkat, take the opportunity, UFC, because ain't nobody doing that. And that's a good fight, man. I have trouble seeing anyone really beating Shavkat, but shout outs to Jack Della Maddalena. He's got some crisp hands, very good grappler. So would see. I'll be very interested to see how he goes in his next matchup and who that will be. And then the first fight of the main card, Peter Yan versus Song Yudong, another amazing fight. Oh, Peter Yan might have been fighting for his spot in the UFC. He was on a bit of a skid, and he kind of wasn't looking that flash for him after that first round from Song Yudong, who come out of the gate looking amazing, as he quite often does. Peter Yan won in a close decision, but he kind of, as the fight progressed, he started to get going a bit more, as Peter Yan seems to do when he kind of switches on. He kind of got the better of him as the fight progressed. But the first round, Song Yudong was looking like a killer, looking like a champion, looked like he should be maybe in the runnings for that belt in the next year or so, 6 months after the kind of loggerhead at the top of the division kind of works itself out. He's putting himself in there. But as time progressed, Peter Yan managed, and this always happens in Song fights. Like I say, and I feel sorry for the guy. He's been around, he's been at the top of this division for so long, but each time he gets a chance to kind of get that fight that's going to put him into the title picture, he always manages to fall short in close decisions or whatever. So it was very similar again to what's happened earlier in his career. He comes out the gate, looks like he's going to win the fight, and then somehow just manages to lose a close decision in the end, which is probably more to do with Peter Yan than him kind of falling off. Peter Yan managed to kind of get his game going and make it work for him late, and won a close decision. So it's actually good to see, because Peter Yan's that whole bantamweight top 5 is ridiculous. Like, any of them could be a champion. They're that good. All of them could beat each other on the day. O'Malley pulling away from the pack with performances like he showed, but such a good weight class, arguably the best weight class in the sport, lightweight, bantamweight. So there's the main card, start to finish. There was only that first fight was the only decision on the main card, and it was an entertaining fight, start to finish anyway. So as far as cards go, you cannot get much better than that. Up until now, I think it was at UFC 203. Dillashaw Garbrandt either way, TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt, and then on the main card, the main event was GSP versus Michael Bisping. The top of my head, that's probably my favourite card up until now. Like this might be the best card I've seen or I've watched live, personally. So many good moments. It was amazing to see Dustin Poirier come and do what he did. And then the prelims themselves, like the prelims were off the chain as well. Old Curtis Blades versus Jailton Almeida in the main event of the prelims. Jailton Almeida, slightly undersized, coming up from light heavyweight, debatably slightly undersized for heavyweight, comes out the gate and just 10-7s Curtis Blades in the first round. I don't know if that's the case or not, but he just wipes the floor with him in the first round. Takedown after takedown. You hear people debating, DC and other people pointing out, I think the UFC gave him 8 or 9 takedowns. Grapplers debating on whether or not they are actually takedowns or whether or not they're just mat returns, which is, in wrestling, they count differently and score differently. But either way, he was just ragdolled him around in the first round. Had his back a few times. Never really looked like he was going to sink the choke in, but he was finding those positions, and it looked like if the fight continued, he might end up finding a choke, or at least threatening them throughout. But he comes out in the second round after just shooting and ragdolling, body locking and ragdolling Curtis Blades, which is super impressive. Curtis Blades, as good of a wrestler as you could be. And then he comes out, tries to do the same thing in the second round, shoots for a takedown, and then on the broadcast they were kind of debating on what it was, whether or not it was the hammer fist at the end. But I think as he shot, you see Curtis down blocks, and then you almost see him throw a cheeky little uppercut, which I think is what buzzed Almeida, which made him shoot to his knees, and then as he's trying to wrap the legs, Curtis Blades just hammer fists him into oblivion. Kind of similar to Ngannou versus Cain Velasquez, short little uppercut, and with those heavyweights, especially in that when you're not going to see it coming and you're not expecting it, with your momentum going forward, that short little uppercut. I think that's what caught him and dropped him, and then he just finished him with the hammer fists. And shout out to Curtis Blades, man, he deserves at least to get a title shot. He's been in and around but that's what happens at heavyweight. You'll get Jailton Almeida, prime example, super skilled, possibly not more skilled as a grappler, different grappling skill set than Curtis Blades, but as skilled and as good as a grappler as you're going to get. And just dominates the first round, and then found himself in an awkward position trying to start the grappling, and just got clipped. It's really hard in those heavier weight classes to be anything other than a really heavy puncher. Derek Lewis is a prime example. Far less of a skill set than, heavyweight's not overly skilled, but this is why they can get away with it. But far less of a skill set than Curtis Blades. Just demolishes Curtis Blades, All you need in heavyweight is a heavy punch, and then gameness, an ability to kind of survive until you get the chance to throw that heavy punch, and then it's game over. People talk about it being different sports from about welterweight or middleweight and up, and middleweight and down, two completely different sports with different skills. Obviously it's not, but you can see why people say that, completely different skill sets and completely different things that determine how fights end in those smaller compared to the larger weight classes, which, casual fans or people that might not follow the sport as much gravitate towards the larger fighters. I think that's why you see, possibly underwhelming heavyweight main events still being made main events, while there's much more better matchups and more skilled fighters further down cards. It's because the large guys standing across the cage from each other, you know, like that's appealing to people that possibly don't follow combat sports as readily as, you know, people that do. But yeah, poor anybody in a higher weight class that spends their whole life training to be the best at something just to get hit by a fucking lunchbox and put to sleep, you know. But, you know, one of the reasons we enjoy it, you know, there's so much on the line. There's so much to lose. Speaking of large heavyweights that put their lives into something to build a skill set, with lunchboxes, happens to have lunchboxes on the end of his arms as well, is this guy in the early prelims, Taekwondo black belt. I don't know a lot of his details about his pre-MMA career or pre-UFC career, but from Cuba, Taekwondo Olympian, I think, or like Taekwondo savant, massive dude, Robelis de Spain, massive, almost 7 foot, 6'8" or something, black dude from Cuba, just striking phenomenon at heavyweight. It'll be interesting to see if he does come up against a Almeida or a Curtis Blades who can put him on the ground. I can imagine he'll be a fish out of water as soon as he's on his back. But anyway, versus old Parisian, who's the one of the many heavyweight punching bags, like straight out the gate. I think his combined kind of full fight career, MMA fight career, is less than a minute. And previous to the UFC, it was less than 18 seconds. And then here he gets an 18-second KO. He like throws a big head kick, falls on his ass, which was kind of funny, and then gets up, and as he's getting up, Parisian rushes him, and he's kind of stumbling back, and in the stumble manages to collect him with a couple of shots and just puts the guy down. Awkward. I think the last one he got him stumbling back, and then he manages to plant his feet on the last one and kind of hits him with a good shot going backwards and puts the guy down and finishes him with hammer fist. But 18 seconds, I think, yeah, like I say, his full MMA career time in the ring is less than a minute or not much more. So it should be really interesting seeing him go. They're going to throw him into cool heavyweight matchups, so you can imagine that you might see Robelis Destrange headlining Fight Night cards later in the year. I wouldn't be surprised. And yeah, there was scattered throughout Gamrot versus Dos Santos. Amazing fight as well. Dos Santos also walked in with his nuts in a wheelbarrow. First round almost puts Gamrot away. Dos Santos is a G. 41 years old, like still. Shout out to whoever replaced USADA, because there's a few peptides floating around in the UFC now. These guys out here looking somewhat sauced up, which is good. I'm not complaining, but yeah, he's comes out, almost finishes Gamrot early, and then they go on to have an amazing fight. Gamrot wins a decision. So yeah, UFC 299, amazing prelims to the main event, entertaining the whole way through. Dustin the Diamond Poirier, shout out DP, man. Gotta love that guy. Hall of Fame. Regardless if he ever wins the unanimous belt or not, he's a champion in most UFC and MMA fans' eyes. That guy is going to go down as a legend of the sport. Already is. Continues. I'm glad he got a chance to wear that war hat after a win, because that war hat is lit. Shout outs to Marvin Hagler, throwback to a classic boxing warrior of the 80s, Marvin Hagler. So yeah, shout outs DP, shout outs to UFC for putting on another amazing card, and shout outs for anyone who put up with this 29 minutes worth of me talking bullshit. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, motherfuckers. We out here.